Welcome everybody to today's webinar. My name is Martin Karlovic. I'm CEO and one of the owners of NETRONIC Software. And today I'd like to talk about visual scheduling essentials and with a big focus on filtering and the impacts of filtering. This is with a focus on the visual production scheduler, VPS, and the visual job scheduler, VJS. Couple of housekeeping things. You're all on mute during this webinar, and you can ask any kind of questions with the GoToWebinar chat pane. So please, if you want to discuss something, then type in a question. Typically, I try to answer them immediately. Sometimes when I'm doing a demo, I won't see the notification that there is a question, so then I will answer your question after the demo part of it. Okay, so please feel free to ask a question anytime. At the end of the webinar, I'll also share my contact details with you, or just look for Martin Karlovic on LinkedIn and connect with me there. Message me there, send me an email. I'm really happy to engage with all of you, because actually I'm the one here in the company who drives all our Business Central related business. So with this, let's get going. And actually, this is the first webinar of a new webinar series that I decided to do this year. And this series is called Visual Scheduling Essentials. And the idea of this series of webinar typically is that, and let's look at this picture first. So I see our product a little bit, or the VPS, the VJS, also the VAPS, the VRV, a little bit as this. So it is a product that you get served as it is. And this product actually consists of a lot of ingredients and a lot of essences, so to speak. And some of the ingredients are just, I would say, there, and they are a necessity that the product exists. But some of the ingredients, some of the essences that are in there, they really make a difference when it comes to the respective products. And like here with the essence that I have in here, this little drip of what you get from here may kind of change the entire product. So some of the essences, they are really fundamental for the overall product. And with the Visual Scheduling Essentials webinar, I really would like to look at the things that are that mark the essence of our product, and I would like to help you better understand these essences of our product, the essentials like core concepts, core ideas, core principles, because I would like you, if you're a customer, to make better use of our product so that you gain more operational agility faster, or if you're a partner, that you actually can help your customers make better use of our products, because you get a more deeper understanding of the core principles, the core concepts, and the core ideas. And today I start with filtering. And there are three things on the agenda for today. This is, first I will talk about really a core concept and will differentiate between the data filter and the view filter. And this applies to both the VAPS and the VJS. And then I will look at a core principle, where I want to discuss with you the question that if you apply a filter, do you want to show, and do we need to show entire orders or not? And this is something that currently applies to the VPS. And we think of also making this applying to the VJS. And then last but not least, there will be some concluding recommendations. And so I see the first question. Audio is not working. Just let me do a quick check. Is audio not working for everybody, or can you guys hear me? So if you just, okay, get a lot of messages that audio is working. So thanks for the feedback. I got also the feedback, and this may be James for you, that some of the guys had to to restart the meeting to hear me. So it seems that's working. So thanks for asking the question, and also thanks for giving quickly feedback. So with this, let me dive into the agenda, and let's look at the core concept where we that with both the visual production scheduler and the visual job scheduler, we differentiate between a data filter and a view filter. And I will show the differentiation later on with the VPS and the VJS for Microsoft Dynamics 365 Business Central, but the concepts and the concept has been developed and implemented already with what we did for Dynamics NAV. So if you're a Microsoft Dynamics NAV user and use one of these two products, or if you have a partner who has customers with one of these products in combination with Microsoft Dynamics NAV, just the same applies as what you learned today and what you see today. It just looks a little bit different because the RTC and the web client are different. So let's talk about data filter and view filter. And let's visualize first the difference. And let's make this very, very simple so that we get the principle and then look how the principle is applied. So let's assume that this is our business-centered database, and this could be whatever. This could be resources, or this could be jobs, or this could be projects. So this is just business-centered data. And then you have the visual scheduler. This could be the VPS or the VJS. And of course, in order to show data from Business Central in one of these products, you have to load data from the database into the visual scheduler, even though our products are directly integrated into Business Central and Dynamics NAV. Still, we have to take the data from the database and get them into the visual schedule. So, and during this load process, so during the process of bringing data from your Business Central database into our visual schedulers, you can actually apply a data filter. So here in my example, I say I only want to see the red data in my visual schedule. And so then the visual scheduler will only show the red data. So this is the data filter. The data filter controls really the amount of data that is taken from Business Central and put into the visual scheduler. To some extent, also the product itself is a data filter because the visual production scheduler only takes production data, production orders. It doesn't take jobs or service orders. So, but this is in the nature of the product. But then when you open the VPS or the VJS, you can actually apply a data filter and control the type of data that is sent to the respective scheduler. The view filter, first we have the same principle. We have the Business Central database and we have the Business Central data. Then you can actually apply again a data filter. So upon the load of the data, you can say, okay, this time I want to load all red and all blue data into the visual scheduler. So then you kind of filter out the gray and the orange and the green ones so that you have the red and the blue ones. And then once the data is in the visual scheduler, then you can apply a view filter to it. So now I can say, okay, I only want to show the red ones. So I don't want to see the blue ones and the dark blue and the light blue ones. This is loaded. And when you apply the view filter, then the blue one, the view filter, then the blue ones will disappear and I will only show the red ones. However, the visual scheduler here knows the blue ones because they were loaded with the data filter, but they just get kind of blended out when applying the view filter. So let's look at how to implement this. So the data filter, there is an explicit option to apply a data filter upon the start of the visual scheduler. So when you start the visual scheduler, actually a new dialog, a new window comes up where you can say, okay, I have already data filter predefined. I wanna apply them, and if this window does not pop up, then know that you need to switch this on in the user settings from within VPS or VJS, and we will look at this later. Then when it comes to data filters, or when it comes to controlling the amount of data that is taken from the database and sent to the visual scheduler, then there is also an implicit data filter, and this is the time frame. So in these settings, you actually can work and define a time frame of data that you want to look at in the visual scheduler. So here I'm looking 3 weeks back. I do this relative to the work date, and I look 6 months into the future. So both are data filters. So this is very implicit. This is somewhere in the settings, and you typically define this once per user. And this also filters out data. So I won't see data that is 4 months or 4 weeks out, and I will also won't see data that is 9 months into the future. This is very implicit. It is here. This one is very explicit because you get this dialog upon the start of the visual scheduler. Then once the visual scheduler is open, you can go to Actions, View Filter, and then choose a view filter and enable the view filter and disable the view filter. So you apply the view filter from within the visual scheduler. So the data filter is first implicit by the time frame that you load, and explicit by the dialog that you actually work on before the visual scheduler opens. And then the view filter, which kind of reduces the amount of data loaded, is being changed and act while the scheduler is open. Okay, big difference here. So let's compare this again. And so the essence is the data filter, which is on the load. It controls the amount of data that is loaded into the visual scheduler, whereas the view filter reduces the amount of data that is loaded and then is shown. So it is always applied after a certain amount of data is loaded. So the implication is, if you filter out data with the data filter, then the visual scheduler does not know these data. Okay, so the data filter is applied in the loading phase, and everything that is not loaded into the visual scheduler is not known by the visual scheduler. And this can have, and also actually impacts, the displayed information, and it makes a big difference for especially for the visualization of the resource utilization, because if there is a job on a certain machine and you filtered out this job, then you will not see that this machine is utilized by the job because the data is not loaded into the system. So this is now getting a little bit theoretic. So let's actually have a look, and let's go to Business Central. And as said, everything that I show you here now works in NAV exactly the same, with the exception that it looks different, but the functionality is the same. So let me just get in here and let's start with the VJS. So now I'm loading the VJS and opening the VJS, and you see now it just comes up and shows me all the data that I have here. So a bunch of projects, and obviously I was not asked about any kind of filtering in advance. So this means that my my data filter upon the data load is not switched on yet. So let's do this. So under Actions, Administration, User Setup, you actually can say show data filter on start. So this is switched off, and there you see there is an implicit data filter applied. This is what I selected actually before I switched this off. So now I switch this on, and I close this, I leave the VJS and I enter the VJS again. And now you see that I'm actually getting a bunch of data filters. And just that you can define as many data filters as you like. So let's do this. Let's create a new data filter. New filter. Maybe I filter on job starting with 2. And obviously there is a limit of I wasn't aware of that. There's a limit of characters you can use here. So this is just new filter, maybe in the webinar. So now the filter exists. Then I can say action, edit filter, and now I can specify the filter criteria. So for example, I can filter on job, and I can filter on any job property. So the list here is quite long. We pre-populated some where we think that this makes sense. And I can say, okay, where it starts, the job number starts with J, whatever. But you can filter also on resource groups and resources. So this is the way of how we define a filter. And then if I think that this filter actually is a filter that is not only good for me, but is also good for colleagues, I can also say that this should be available company-wide. So if I select this and leave this, then this new filter now shows up in all data filter dialogs also of my colleagues, whereas this show all filter here is just for me as the individual user. So it's just for me in this machine. So now I'm actually, just for sake, I say this because, and this is something I did last webinar on the VJS, I talked about a little bit about working with templates and not. So I have actually project templates in here, and you can copy these templates, create a new job, and quickly plan this. So if you're interested in this, have a recording at the VJS webinar as of last month. But here now I'm just show my project filter, and this is basically, let's look at this. This filter is just built as, sorry for that. This filter is just built as I had this one where the job number starts with J. So if we do this, then all jobs where the number starts with J are loaded into the VJS. Of course, there is a demo effect not working here, so show progress. I say okay, and then hopefully the VJS starts, and we only see jobs that start with the number, where the number starts with the J. Okay, I have others in there, they don't open. So now I actually reduced the number of jobs being loaded into the VJS, which means the VJS only knows about these jobs. So now let's switch the view and see what the impact is of the question, like the VJS only knows about these jobs. So let me go to the resource view, and as you know that here on the resource view, we look at the data by resource group and by resources, and we see here on the project lead, we have this triangle so that we can also look at the capacity utilization, for example, of this group. And we see that my group of project leads is pretty busy here in this week. And so now if I would, and we see we have a full load of my resources on Monday, an almost full load on Tuesday, we have a lot of flexibility on Wednesday, and we have a full load on Thursday and a bit of flexibility on Friday. So if I would reschedule this and say, okay, this activity, this job or this job planning line starts a little bit later, then I'm actually creating an overload here, because this overload is with the other projects that have been loaded. And you see that I actually get a notification that tells me, okay, with the resource project manager, the capacity is exceeded. So I get also the notification here about, say, capacity overutilization. And we can do this because we have loaded all the data. So now let's move this back. Quickly say scheduled successor, so that's where it was before. Now, let me get rid of the notifications. Something still is, but we don't have the project manager warning here. So now let's apply actually a view filter and say, okay, now this is getting a little bit too complicated. I just want to focus on this red job. So with the view filter, I said it's action view filter, and then I can choose a view filter. I have a couple of them here, and now I only want to look at job 220. So again, the job filter or the view filter has been built with, I focus on a job number. I say, show me just data where the job number is 220. So if this is now selected, then I can say action view filter and enable the filter. And now you see I'm just looking at this red job, both in this view and in the other view. Okay, so also here I'm just looking at this one project, although with the data filter, I loaded all the products. So the VJS knows about all the other projects, which means if I go back here and if I look at the capacity utilization curve, you see it has information of all the other job planning lines that we saw here before. So it gives me an accurate picture of the resource load. And so if I move this now, I again see, okay, I create an overload over here. And actually, I would have expected to get also notifications. I wouldn't need to talk to the developers. Of course, this worked when I did the dress rehearsal earlier today. But you see, I get accurate information about the capacity utilization because the data has been loaded with the data filter, because I loaded all the jobs and I can now look, okay, what it creates the conflict here. I can say the view filter, disable view filter, then I see the complete picture again, and now I see what creates the conflict here. So this is I applied a data filter to a bunch of projects to all my active projects, and so I saw a realistic picture of the capacity utilization. So now let's do kind of the similar thing. Let's focus on this red job, but apply a data filter that only looks at this job. So I have the same that what I applied as a view filter after the data was loaded, and now I apply this to the load process. So again, let's have a look. This filter is built in a way, please filter on where the job number equals 220. So I'm now filtering on this job. So now when the VJS comes up here in my project view or in the job view, I just see this one job. I can drill down into the job tasks. And then I can say show in resource view, and then here in the resource view you only see this one job. And now if I look at the capacity curve, I only get the kind of capacity utilization from this particular job because I didn't load all the other jobs, and so the VJS does not know about all the other jobs. And this means if the VJS does not know about all the other jobs because they weren't loaded, we also don't have the information about the capacity. So if I do this change now here again, I don't get an alert in the histogram that tells me heads up, there are already other projects at this time frame, and I also don't get the notification. So this is the big difference between the data filter and the view filter. The data filter pushes the data or controls the amount of data that get loaded into the VJS, and then once it is loaded with the view filter, you can change what you see on the screen, but we still know about this information. Okay, so then, like I defined the data filter upon the start of the VJS, I spoke about the fact that there is also an implicit data filter, and this is in the user setup. This is this time frame, and you can say this either you set the time frame on an absolute date, so that you say, okay, I want to always load data from the 1st of January to end of June or whatever, or, and this is my preferred way, I have it relative, and relative means relative to the work date. So here in my case, I'm looking 3 weeks back and 6 months out. So if there would be a job in 9 months or in 10 months, I wouldn't see this at all. And also from here, I can see which data filter has been set. So I think I can also from here change the data filter. So I can say show projects if I think what I did here is weird. And then we would need to reload. Yes, I don't want to save it. No. And then I get back to the full picture with all the data. So now I load it again. More data, same time frame, but more jobs, and then the picture looks different. So this is the main difference between the data filter and the view filter. And I will come also when I look at the recommendations later on, both have the rights to exist. The one is to control the amount of data, and the other is then to kind of quickly focus on particular information that you have loaded. Okay, so let's look at, now that we looked at this really fundamental thing about differentiating between the data filter and the view filter, let's deal with a question that kind of kept us busy and kept us thinking and kept us discussing since we started actually looking at filters. And this is the question, should we show an entire order or not? And this is something that currently applies to the VPS, both in Dynamics NAV and in Business Central, but which is something which we also start to discuss and consider for the VJS. And really, with these questions, we had this WTF moment when we were building the product. We had a lot of head scratching, a lot of discussions, and a lot of discussions like, I believe it should be this, and I believe it should be that way, and I believe this and this. So it was a little bit, well, I wanted to avoid the phrase it was religious, but in the end it was religious. We were talking a lot of beliefs, and when you talk about beliefs, when specifying a product, then this always leads to these situations where you start scratch your head and think, WTF, what's going on here? So let's have a look what caused this kind of head scratching. And we actually felt at some point of time, we thought that we're in a situation, okay, we are damned if we do it, but also we are damned if we don't do it. So this actually, what I will talk about now, leads sometimes to a situation that customers or partners call us or reach out to us and say, hey, here's the bug in your product. And then we say, hey, actually, you know, the old software phrase, it's not a bug, it's a feature, which always sounds dumb if you say this, but in this case, it is just true. And now let's look what I mean and why it is as it is, and also why I believe actually now, or I'm convinced, no more believes, but I'm convinced, and I have got this confirmed from customers, that it is good as it is, although it is complex. And the whole point seems so simple. So let's look at a typical case. So this could be 4 machine centers or 4 machines or whatever. And we have operations or production orders loaded to the machines. There's a blue production order, green, a gray, and an orange one. And there is this red production order that starts on machine 1, then immediately goes to machine 2. Then it has a wait a bit before the gray one on machine 3 is finished, and then we start on machine 3. Okay, so this is the starting case. And then there is a user who says, hey, I want to filter on machine 2. Okay, so other than I did before with the VJS where I applied job specific filter, I'm not saying I want to filter on the red job, but now I'm talking about, and this makes things really complicated. It is filtering on, let's phrase it, generally filtering in resources. So in the production environment, filtering on work center groups or on work centers or on machine centers, this can make things very complicated. So we have this very simple case, just a few whatever operations for machines, and the user say, hey, let's filter on machine 2. And here is what almost 100% people of users have in mind when they say, I want to filter on machine 2 is, this is how it was before. And then they say, okay, let's filter on machine 2. They have a picture in mind that looks like this. They say, okay, if I want to filter on machine 2, I want to filter on machine 2. I just want to see machine 2, right? I want to see the green one and the red one, and I don't care for all the rest here. The thing is, if I now here and start moving this red one, right? I could move it to here, and then I wouldn't see, I don't see at all that there is a successor, right? I even don't see this link here. I would just think, okay, let's move it a little, let's move it to the left. Okay. I would see, hey, there's actually space on the machine, there's free time, so let's move it to the left. And with this, I wouldn't even see that it cannot start earlier because this one just finishes here. So I cannot move it here, although I get the impression. Also, it could be the case that I would move it to the right, and then what happens if I move it beyond this point, if I move it to here? Right? Should this move? Should this not move? If it move, what happens if I violate the due date? So if you filter on a machine, actually, there are all these questions that I just talked about that almost 100% of all users do not have in mind. So if you make drag and drop changes, you do not see if and how this impacts other machines, and successors might move as well, right? Or if you have this, do you want successors to move? Do you want predecessors to move? If I move it to here, should this move to here, or should it tell me no, it cannot move? Because also, you know, this could be with a data filter. Imagine this happens with a data filter, then you don't know about all these other things, right? So the machines are filtered out. So these are the things that make this, although we all of us have this in mind when we say we want to filter machine 2, it makes it complicated. So in the very beginning, we kind of had a golden rule, and this also describes how our products work by default. So our golden rule is never ever cut a production order. So always show a production order as total. So if we want to filter on machine 2, and if this machine 2 has a production order that also requires machine 1 and machine 3, then if I apply the machine 2 filter, then the picture actually looks like this. And this is where a customer comes and says, hey, this is a bug. I'm filtering on machine 2 and I just want to see machine 2. And then the rule that we have is, in general, by default, okay, we never ever want to break a production order, because we want, if you make drag and drop changes, we always show all resources that are needed to work on the production order, because we never want to break it up. Because if you want to make drag and drop changes, and this is what our products are built for, then we would like you to see and understand the impacts of what you are doing. This is the essence of our product. Okay, so this is how we built this, and this was for a long while really a golden rule of our products. And then at some point of time, well, the head scratching started again, and we decided, okay, there is actually no rule without an exception. So we made a reality check, okay? And actually you see that we can make an exception. It is highlighted here. And the reality check is we learned and we know that there are cases in which breaking up a production order really makes sense. It is damn dangerous. It is damn dangerous to just show parts of a production order, but we allow you to do so under the settings of the VAPS because these cases make sense. And the most common case where it makes sense is if you have a customer, or if you are a customer, and if you have a machine or work center that is your bottleneck, and you just need to schedule this one bottleneck. And if you really can afford to ignore everything that happens upstream or downstream, you just want to get this one bottleneck under control, right? In this case here, right, it is machine 2. Machine 2 is your bottleneck, and you really don't care how the situation at machine 1 looks like, and you really don't care what 3 and 4 is. You know, these guys, we will get it done there. We will get it done. In some cases we can subcontract, or we can hire temp workers or whatever. We don't need to care what's happening downstream, but we need to get this done, and we cannot afford idle time machine 2. We need to line them up one after the other. So if this is the case, if you have this particularly defined bottleneck, then this really makes sense to break up the production order and to ignore everything that you really don't need to focus on. And in order to support you to get this kind of focus, we actually allow you to tell the VAPS to, and now Business Central language, to show partial production order lines. So only to do this, right? To only show a part of a production order line, not show operation 1, not show operation 3, just show operation 2. And this is done under settings, general show partial production order lines. If this little thing is switched on, then if you filter on a work center group, or on a machine center, then the VAPS actually does what users have in mind. And now this is something that you can control. And in the moment of time when we did this reality check and said, okay, we need to kind of apply this, then we came into a situation actually where, and it was a developer who kind of came to me and, look, Martin, I sense and I understood that we need to build this feature, but here is the next thing I want you to think about and tell me how to implement and what to do. And when this guy came to me and it was in a meeting, kind of my reaction was like this. It was really like this. I said, wow, you're kidding me. You're serious? Because it's really getting complicated if you combine what I just discussed with what I previously discussed. So if I combine this thing, this feature, with the data filter and the view filter, and this is what we will look at, and I give you an example of what we look at. So the first example is, and keep in mind, if you have a data filter applied, the VPS does not know the data that you filtered out, okay? So here's the example. We have this functionality switched on, so show partial production order lines is yes. We filter on machine 2, and there is no view filter, okay? The consequence is the VPS only knows the machine 2. If you change things on machine 2, all other routing lines and all other machines remain unchanged. So if you change things there, you will not see if orders finish late. You will not see a downstream overload. You just see your bottleneck machine 2, right? So this is how it works. So now let's look at the next example. And again, keep this in mind. The data filter filters it out. And I just swap this. I say I leave this feature on, I apply no data filter, I apply the view filter on machine 2, and then if I do this, the VPS knows all the machines, right? And it knows all the capacity utilization, it just show you the machine 2. And then if you change things on machine 2, all other routing lines on all other machines get changed, and you will see if orders finished late. So this is a big difference, and actually this tiny difference is something we built in Business Central. To my knowledge, this is nothing we have in NAV. So this question triggering me looking like this beautiful women was when we designed the product for Business Central. And now let's actually look at this and turn the theory into a little bit practical things. So now go to the VPS, and same principle here. I have already switched on data filter, and I say, let me filter on machining. So this is actually a filter I have that filters on a work center group called machining. So I have two work center groups. The one is machining and the other is assembly and quality control. And now I say, okay, I don't care for assembly and quality control. We get these things done. So I just want to focus on machining. Okay, so I apply this filter. And this is the data filter. I apply the data filter, looking at the schedule, also checking administration setup. This general show partial production order lines is switched on. By the way, time frame, so also time filter, but this is switched on so that I know I'm now only seeing operations that are in my machining department, right? I don't see stuff that is on assembly and quality control. And if I go to the capacity where you see this, I only have machining and no information about assembly. And then I can, of course, drill down into milling and turning, into drilling, cutting. So go from the work center group to the work center, see the machine centers. And now I'm taking this blue one here, this light blue, firm planned one, and I see in my machining department it goes cutting, drilling, and milling, and I don't know at all. So I don't see a link here. I don't know if there is some assembly work to do, and I don't know if there is some quality control work to do. So now, if I just move this a bit, to maybe to start here. And we see the successors move. And let me start this here on this Monday so that we can compare stuff. So you see the successors move, and this all look quite good. I actually have no visibility what the downstream processes are because I have the data filter on my work center group, which means we don't know about any other work center group, and hence we also don't know about any operations on these other work center groups. So let me now change the scenario, go to the second example, open the VPS again. Now not apply any data filter. So I say show all. My show all filter actually, by the way, is built in a way that everything is blank. So nothing is filtered out. And so everything is shown. And here in the VPS, you actually can filter on work center group, on work center, on machine center, and production order. Quite powerful, and all fields here, and you can combine it, and you can kind of link this with the AND thing. So there's quite a lot of horsepower in here. But here, and I say I don't want to filter out anything, so I want to see all. And now, here in the production order view, it actually looks pretty much the same. But if I go back to the capacity view, then you see, I actually have a machining work center group and an assembly work center group. I can again kind of expand this because initially I said, hey, I want to work on machining. And now I can apply a data filter, a view filter, where I say choose view filter. And now I have your view filter machining. So again, same as the data filter before, but now that I have the data loaded, I just apply it on the view that I have. So I apply on where the work center group code is 1. So this is my machining department. And if I select this view filter, say OK, and if I enable this view filter, then again, you will recognize, okay, so now no assembly, no quality control, but we know of the data. So now if I select this little production order here again, then we know it runs, and I now as a user see it runs to cutting 2, drilling 1, and milling and turning. But the VAPS, the smart beast, knows that there are also operations in Work Center Group 2, assembly and quality control, and actually I have assembly and quality control activities to take care of. So now if I move this, the VAPS also moves the operations that are loaded but not yet or not shown yet because I applied the view filter. So we move all the others. And if I do this now, you see, hey, boom, I get this red dot and I get a red due date line. So I know that although I don't see what is happening downstream, I see that kind of hidden from me as a user, the VPS moved the successors according to the routing, and now the successor here is past, the last activity is past the due date. So if I remove the view filter, if I disable the view filter, look at the entire picture again, then I actually see, okay, look, the assembly activity has been moved, the quality control activity has been moved, and now this is the full picture, but also when the picture was reduced due to the view filter, I see the impacts, although I said show partial production online. So there is a big difference when you work with this show partial production online, how the products behave depending on if you switch view filter on or switch the data filter on or combine both. And I hope that this little example made this a bit clearer, because also here sometimes customers say, actually, I found an issue, but then it's always, or most of the times, it's due to a combination of show partial production order lines, view filter, and data filter on. So now let's make some concluding recommendations based on the things I have shown to you. And I actually have 3 recommendations. So first, really make very, very good and conscious use of the time frame data filter. This is the oldest filter that we have, and my point of view, this is the most overlooked filter that we have, as it is just implicit. But if you have users with different planning horizons, then set up different time frames for them. For example, if you have a master planner and if you have a shop floor supervisor, then their planning horizon is different. The master planner looks at the next couple of weeks or months, and the shop floor supervisor looks at today, tomorrow, and the day after tomorrow. And so there is no need that they look at the same VPS and that the shop floor supervisor looks at the entire time frame. Make the time frame that he or she looks at shorter. Same when you do project planning. You have people typically who do the rough planning, and you have other guys who do the short-term execution and operation planning. Give them different time frames. This is really a shortcut to user happiness, because the less data to load, the faster the product is, and the more focus you give to the user on the relevant data. So really, when you implement the product, when you discuss with your customers or discuss with your users, then try to understand what really the time frame is they need to look at most of the time, and then implement this as a time frame data filter relative to the work date. And this, in the very first step, make sure that the data that is shown to the users is relevant to the job they need to do and is relevant to the goal that they need to achieve or they want to achieve. Then the second thing is, the data filter is dangerous, right? So do not play around with the data filter. Use it wisely and very targeted. And you have seen the implications when we looked at the VJS. especially when it comes to the resource utilization. So I really recommend that you predefine data filters and that you let your super users or the experienced user do them, and then share them, also make them available for your company, and advise casual or base users not to change them, because you can do really a lot of harm with them if you don't understand them. Use data filters if you have clearly separated entities to plan. So for example, if you have different sites with different and independent machine or machine centers or work centers, then you can use them. Then you have the planner Peter, who looks for plant or site 1, and the planner Mary, who looks for plant B, and then you can give Peter and Mary a different schedule based on the different areas of responsibility. Same when it comes to project planning. If you have really project teams with different team members, so you have a project organization in California and the other project organization is in Massachusetts, then most of the time you want to have people fly from the East Coast to the West Coast all the time, but most of the time that we have the people either in California or in Massachusetts, and then you can have a data filter on people in Massachusetts and a data filter on resources in California, if you have this. And with the data filter, use it even more consciously if you have in the VPS the show partial production orders option switched on. And then last but not least, the view filter is the thing to play around with, right? Because it is very agile, it is flexible. You can define it, you can switch it on, you can switch it off, you can see it before, after. It is all on the fly while the data is there. So use it often and also use it in an inconsistent way, right? The view filter is agile. It also forgives filtering hiccups because you can just switch it on, switch it off, switch it, because also if you have switch it on, if you change things, things will not fundamentally break because the VJS and the VPS know about all the other data that are then filtered out just for this moment, right? And also use the view filter to test settings for a data filter. So if you want to implement a data filter, do it with the view filter first, right? Do it, and then if you don't need it, delete it. If it's good, okay, then remember the settings and then build it as a data filter. So this is really what I would like you to take away is, first, make very good and conscious use of the time frame data filter. It's overlooked and it is damn valuable. Second, really don't play around with the data filter, right? Use it very, very target and use it wisely. And the third, if you want to play around, play with the view filter. Use it frequently and use the view filter actually to test out things that you want to implement with the data filter. And with this, I'm done with drilling down into really the essentials of our filter concept and principles. And if you have any question, you can ask them now. I actually see there are questions coming. Okay, there is a question in German. If the filter is applied to all views or just to a particular view. So no, the filter that you apply, that you define, is always applied to all views. So there is no view for specific filter. So this means that consequently the data filter can be problematic because it leads to a wrong overview. Yeah, this is just what I just said. Yes, the webinar will be is recorded and will be made available to watch afterwards. Can we block users from having those filter options? Not yet, but this is something we look at, and I will take this good question. I will take this with me to discuss it with the developer. Does it take service management orders into consideration? Right now, it is we have the visual production scheduler to deal with production orders, and with the capacities, we have the visual job scheduler to deal with jobs and resources, and we have the visual resource viewer. And this is a product that looks at jobs, at service orders, assembly orders, and absences. And okay, there's thing that questions are answered now. So if there is no further question, then let me thank you very much for your kind attention. And as said, and as you hopefully sense from me giving these webinars, I really like what we are doing, and I really like discuss these things with you and be in contact with you. So if you have any question, send me an email or connect on LinkedIn. I'm also on Twitter, but not the most active person here. So either email or LinkedIn are really good ways to get hold of me. And if you have a question, if you have a suggested topic for one of the upcoming webinars, if you want me to drill down into something specific, then just drop me a note and I will take this. I think we have lined up webinars now for March and April, but if you have a great idea what I should do in May, just send it to me, and most likely I will just do what you suggest me to do. So feel free to reach out with any kind of Business Central related issue, question, topic, suggestion you have. And with this, thanks again, and see you soon in one of the next webinars. Thanks. Have a great day.